What's going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rage, back with another Outriders video to bring to you, and today we're going to be doing a breakdown for two of the most common builds when it comes to Devastators in terms of like the set bonuses, and that is the Seismic Commander set compared to the Marshal set. Now, obviously, Seismic Commander is pretty much known throughout the community as pretty much top tier. It's the only one really that you can use when it comes to a Devastator, or at least an anomaly powered one anyway. And well, there are some kind of like niches with Death Proof, and there's a couple of niches here and there with other kind of like set bonuses when it comes to the Devastator for like firepower builds. The Seismic Commander's always been at the top of the list and top of the food chain, so I wanted to see if the Marshal, which has always had a soft spot in my heart, at least when it comes to my debuff Devastators, if it's able to compete, it's able to keep up, and just kind of like take it from there. So before we get any further, and before we get started, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does mean the world to us. And once again, we have hit that 2k subscriber mark, so make sure you keep an eye out for the video to explain how you're able to get in with a chance to be able to enter for our giveaways, just to show our appreciation back to the community. So the previous way we were able to determine which build is actually the better one was purely using the timers and obviously making sure that it could go a gold standard ACT15 run. Now obviously with the removal of the timers, that's not as necessary anymore, but we can actually add the timer through the options menu, and interestingly enough, there was only 1 second difference between the two builds. Now, I can't really use this as definitive proof as to which one's better, because 1, they're pretty much the exact same, 2, that could be due to pathing of how I've done it, and 3, it could be a mixture of things, it could be a multitude of things, so therefore I don't think it's a fair way to be able to analyse these builds, but just know that the Marshal set did actually finish in 1 second faster than the Seismic Commander. The other thing to really note on this is the fact that while this isn't my main build for the Seismic Commander or anything like that, it's just purely there to be able to compare the set bonuses, and I really wanted to be able to compare it that way, so that's why it's not necessarily a kind of like a perfected build in any kind of way. It's just purely to be able to compare the two. Obviously, as soon as we started mixing up skills and all that kind of thing, they kind of get a little bit further away from each other in terms of being able to compare, and that just makes my job and this video a lot more difficult to be able to do that. So in the interest of fairness, that's why I've done the exact same thing. So therefore, you know, we've got endless mass on both of the builds, and it just helps out to be able to, you know, a bit of crowd control, but obviously the Marshal set is what benefits from that, whereas the Seismic doesn't necessarily. So really the only thing we can actually have a look at would be damage numbers, and obviously when it comes to the Marshal set, this is only active, the set bonus is only active when you use Endless Mass, so this is very limited compared to when you're able to get that back off cooldown, when you're able to be able to use it, and obviously how many targets you're able to pull in. Now on this build, which you're seeing in the background, it does have a cooldown of 10.6 seconds. Now obviously that it's kind of longer than compared to some of the skills that a Devastator has, but relatively short, and you are able to obviously proc this several times during a fight in a battlefield, so therefore I don't think it's too bad. Obviously the effect does actually last a little bit longer as well, and you know, it's overall it's pretty decent. By the time you've actually noticed that you've killed that group of enemies, you probably only have to wait like about 4 or 5 seconds before you're able to proc it once again to be able to benefit from that set bonus. Whereas obviously the Seismic Commander is always active as long as the target is bleeding, so therefore I have to give a point to the Seismic Commanders for the fact that it's just so much easier to be able to proc, and it's obviously just you don't have to necessarily think about it as much compared to what you do for the Marshal set. So Seismic Commander technically wins this kind of category for me. Now if we go from there into the damage numbers, now obviously this will be a very nice comparison to be able to draw from. The thing is, when we were using these builds, both were using ultimate damage link on a shotgun, just to be able to compare like what extra damage we're able to do. Does the Marshal set benefit from actually having ultimate damage link on top of that, and is it able to multiply any kind of numbers, and just really kind of take it from there. This is how I would personally recommend it, obviously going with Shadow Comet as well on the side, just to be able to, so you've actually got a little bit of extra form of damage as well. So if we have a quick look at the Marshal set first, and then we'll go into the Seismic, and we'll do it for each of the skills. So when it came to the Earthquake, I was able to hit up to 1,000,000 points of damage with the Marshal set when obviously the set was actually triggered, and this was also, I believe, with ultimate damage link, so it was a very nice number to actually see for a single skill that doesn't normally reach that kind of height, and I wasn't able to kind of meet this with the Earthquake on the Seismic build. Now obviously there's, you know, the Marshal set does add in a type of multiplier, and obviously ultimate damage link on top of that is also another multiplier. So I think it actually has a really nice interaction there, and maybe I just got a little bit lucky, but I was able to hit 1 million, whereas with the Seismic Commander I wasn't able to actually do that. So technically I have to give a point here to the Marshal. If we then go from there to melee, this one is pretty much just a it's a swat, like a whole sweep for the Seismic Commander when it came to that. So with when it came to the Marshal set, I was only able to hit around about 122k. This was with ultimate damage link, so I don't think it was necessarily benefiting too much from there. But when it came to the Seismic, I was doing 102k before the bleed, and then on a grunt that was less than 30% health because of how my skill tree is set up, I was able to hit for 356k with the set bonus active. So therefore, Seismic Commander does win this one, so therefore it's 1 point over to there. When it comes to the Comet though, because we are planning to use Shadow Comet with obviously our gun, and Ultimate Damage Link does a really nice job of being able to spread this out, but obviously the Comet does benefit from all those kind of multipliers, so whether it be the Marshal set bonus or whether it be the Seismic Commander, it is able to actually benefit from both of those. So when it came to the Marshal set, I was able to hit a single Comet up to 1.7 million points of damage, which is pretty insane for a mod that says it only does around about 250k if I remember right. But it seemed to average around about 580k, between 580 and 829k. Without the passive though, this only hit for around about 342k. So overall, it's a pretty damaging ability, and the average between 580 and 829 on a shotgun, and obviously you're calling down more than one Comet, is very, very nice. So yeah, it's definitely a good shout to be able to use this on the Marshal set. If we look at the Seismic though, on targets that were bleeding, I was hitting for around about 409, or between 409 and 538k, so not really as much, but what was really interesting was the fact that I did actually hit one for 2.6 million, which you're going to see in the footage right now. But this was after a full debuff, so this was going to be with Despair, this was also going to be with the Endless Mass, obviously debuffing as well, and Ultimate Damage Link as well, but 2.6 million points of damage for a single Comet was pretty insane. So I guess it's kind of it's kind of a tie in this sense. While the 2.6 mil is absolutely huge for the Seismic Commander, and I do think that you're possibly able to recreate this a little bit more easily, the average was definitely better with the Marshal set, so therefore I have to kind of give them kind of bonus there. So I'm gonna call this a tie, and I'm gonna give both sides a point for that. So overall, when we actually look at just purely the damage numbers, then this kind of competition draws to a bit of a tie. So obviously each one is good in their own specific scenarios, and while I was able to hit some higher numbers in certain circumstances compared to the other build, I do think it's a bit negligible if we start to looking at just purely those like high numbers, because obviously that could be just a scenario where Ultimate Damage Link was proccing in different cases compared to the other one. But overall, both set bonuses are definitely viable. Both set bonuses are actually very good to be able to use, and it just kind of really boils down to what kind of build you want to be able to go for. Now obviously the Seismic Commander is pretty much there to be able to like just 100% of the time just boost up the damage that you're dealing by bleed, and obviously you are inflicting bleed pretty much all the time when it comes to being a Devastator, as long as you're doing it right. So I do think that the Seismic Commander is definitely the easiest one to be able to use. I do think that it gives you the best boost or best buck for your money compared to obviously the Marshal set, but the Marshal set is there for crowd control, it's there for more of like a debuff kind of like playstyle, and you definitely can get a lot of work done. I would say that the Seismic Commander is probably it doesn't like affect your teammates as much. It is basically more of like a selfish kind of build compared to that of the Marshal set, because the Marshal set does actually then start spreading out damage. I would say that on both builds it's probably better to be able to go for Ultimate Damage Link, so you are able to deal a lot more damage, and also it also affects your teammates in case you do actually use it in a team play. So make sure you actually do take a shotgun and put Ultimate Damage Link on both builds basically. So with this being a tie, is there anything that we can really take away from this? Well, not necessarily. I do think that obviously the Seismic Commander is probably going to still be top dog. I don't think that's really going to happen anytime soon. It's going to change that. The only thing that really I would like to see the Marshal set, push to be able to, potentially be up there with the Seismic Commander would be that the set bonus actually did offer some kind of like cooldown reduction to Endless Mass, because Endless Mass as a skill isn't necessarily great, because there are elites that will actually start to resist it, and obviously in certain scenarios there are ways that you can't actually proc it, which means that you're not able to benefit from your set bonus whatsoever. Whereas obviously the Seismic Commander you're always able to inflict bleed, so therefore you're pretty much always going to be able to get this set bonus. So it would be nice to see if we can actually get some kind of like change from that, from PCF or Square Enix, when it comes to obviously World Slayer. But fingers crossed for that, because like I said, I always have a soft spot for the Marshal set, and after doing this kind of research, after doing a few runs and obviously getting all these figures put together, I'd be really interested to see if the Marshal set will actually start pushing for #1 when it comes to Devastator. So that pretty much brings this video up to a wrap. So I hope you've enjoyed and hope you've learned something useful with ourselves, and I hope you actually do give the Marshal set a bit of a try if you've actually been putting yourself off from actually giving it a go. So make sure, if you did enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like and a subscribe. It really does help the channel out. And as always, thank you all so much to the Babylonian family. Their support is greatly appreciated, and thank you all so much for staying this far into the video. That just leaves me to say thanks so much, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on that next video.